Addysg a gwella iechyd Cymru. Welcome everybody, and I've got apologies from Heidi Phillips and Lisa Llewellyn, and I've confirmed that we are quorate with the board secretary. Are there any declarations of interests that should have been declared that need to be declared now? No? Okay, thank you very much. And I want to go, please, to the draft minutes of the board meeting held on the 27th of May 2021. David, I can't get the board minutes up in front of me. Oh, I've got them. No, I've got them. So first of all, for accuracy, please, page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8, are there any issues of accuracy anybody wishes to raise?
Just on page 8, Chris,
Yeah.
Minute 2705-4.5, where it says John Hiltout introduced the report noting the committee had received, I think we should put the definite article, the draft annual accounts, and the draft head of internal audit opinion, and the annual report. I think we should put those three in.
I agree. Thank you. Can I now go to the action log, please? David, are you able to confirm the action log is complete?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm going to go back now, please, to the minutes for any matters arising that are not on today's agenda. So page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You happy with those minutes? Nothing to raise?
No, happy.
Happy for me to sign those minutes off as an accurate record?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. So today we have two substantive items. Number 1 is the annual plan, and number 2 is the annual accounts. So let's go to agenda item 2.1, the annual plan, please. And I'll hand that over to you, Ivion, to introduce.
It's me, Chair, I think.
Oh, sorry, Nicola, sorry.
Yeah, it's a two-part item. So the plan, and then Ivion will come in on
Okay.
the plan. So thank you, Chair. The board received the final draft annual plan in March and gave good feedback on that plan, which was then submitted as the final draft to Welsh Government. And received subsequent correspondence asking us to submit the final plan by the end of June, being a board approved plan. So the plan is the final plan is presented to the board today for approval. Once it is approved, it is our plan that we will deliver as an organisation. Clearly, we've already started, given where we are in the year with that. But we'll take it forward into the organisation on that basis. But it will be shared and submitted to Welsh Government, but due to the pandemic, Welsh Government won't be approving it formally, but we expect further feedback on it. We had formal feedback on the final draft, which was positive and is shared in the pack. And the final document has responded to the small number of areas for improvement. We've strengthened those in the document. And the positive feedback was reiterated at AaGIC, which took place on Tuesday this week as well. So it was a matter of the formal record of that meeting as well. the other pieces of work we've undertaken in terms of this final document is that we have reviewed all of the final draft plans from all the 15 NHS Wales organisations. And Julie has advised, as the Director of Workforce and OD, that there were no strategic issues that need to be changed in the plan or any tweaks to the strategic objectives as a result of that exercise. Our plans aligned with that review. And the other areas that have been strengthened in the plan since the final draft is the financial plan and the corresponding minimum data set, and the financial chapter therefore reflects that minimum data set and the financial plan. And the document has been updated to reflect our end of year performance position, which obviously the board received at its last meeting. We've also since checked the document against the recovery plan, which is, was subsequently submitted, the COVID-19 looking forward. So on that basis, the plan is recommended to the board for approval today, and that delivery by the organisation. And as I said, then we'll share it with Welsh Government and submit it before the deadline. So thank you, Chair.
Okay, are there any questions or comments, please, for Nicola? John?
Thank you, Chair. Very happy with the plan, and obviously we've had the chance to see this before. I just wanted to ask a question on the feedback letter. Is it appropriate to do that now, Chris?
Yes.
Nicola, on the feedback letter, the review group raised 4 points. And the third point says, talks about engagement, and we provided clear evidence of engaging with others, but this was not necessarily aligned in health board plan submissions. I mean, what do we interpret that to mean? Is it that the LHBs are not feeding in their plans to us? How do we interpret that comment?
So I think if we take our minds back to where health boards particularly were in the production of their final draft plans, because obviously this feedback is on final draft plans, the March submissions. I think there was general acknowledgement that health boards were struggling to engage as widely as they would normally in the production of those plans, given that they were quite heavily involved in crisis response at that time. So that was the discussion that we had on a number of occasions at Directors of Planning Peer Group, for example. And we have had the benefit that we have seen the feedback, a digest of the feedback that was given to other organisations. And in some cases, they were asked specifically to make sure that their plans aligned with ours and with other national organisations. So I think there were particular circumstances this year, but further conversations had to be had with some of the peer network groups on how we improve that engagement going forward, I think.
But the final plans, there has been proper engagement then, that's what we're saying.
I think that was more for other organisations to do using our plan, yeah.
Thank you, thank you.
Tina?
Thanks, I was going to ask that as well. There's just one point, small point, Nicola, and apologies that I read this last night and I should have sent it this morning. It's regarding the executive summary. It's just a typo where it says, over the past 12 months, the pandemic has made a big impact on other health. I think we need to just clarify that a little bit and get the grammar right. But the other question I had, Chair, was in relation to, it's a similar question where we outlined that the undergraduate fill rates have dropped by 2-3% because of the COVID. I just wondered whether there was any potential impact of a third wave and that being affected, and whether we could have to answer that in the future. I guess it's linked to the previous question that Vice Chair asked in relation to the health boards aligning some of their plans to our submission. Thanks.
Okay, Nicola, do you want to come back?
Yeah, I just wondered if Alex or Angela want to sort of comment on the issue around fill rates, etc.
So I can certainly respond, Chair, in relation to the health professional education fill rate, and I think the same would apply to date for the other professions, which is there is no indication at the minute of any impact or negative impact at all on fill rates. But of course, we're not quite at that point in the cycle yet to be clear about what that might be. As we know, we're still waiting for exam results and the impact of those on offers and applications, but certainly applications to date seem very steady, so we're not anticipating any adverse consequences at all.
Okay, so if there are no further questions or comments, I'm asking members to approve the annual plan for 21-22 for submission to Welsh Government.
Yep.
Can I have your approval, please?
Yes, fine, Chair.
Thank you very much. Ivy, on the resource plan.
Thank you, Chair. If I can take colleagues' attention to the resource plan that's included in our papers, and if I very quickly take us through this document. The page 2, the bottom of page 2 sets out the Welsh Government allocation in the detail that we have. This has been received previously by the board, and you will note that it amounts to 270 million for the current year. So that's the starting allocation that we received from Welsh Government. But as colleagues have been are aware in terms of the briefings that we've given previously, that colleagues will be aware that we are still in discussion with Welsh Government on further initiatives whereby we are anticipating further funding will actually be will be received. And as we go through the paper, you can see that under the heading of leadership and succession, we have £884,000 worth of initiatives under discussion with them that we're expecting funding to be supported. We also have got business cases submitted in table 3. You can see there's a further £1,000,000 for those items, and there are other items in table 4 that we're in discussion with colleagues in Welsh Government amounting to £405,000. We've also had agreement to carry forward £600,000 of development funding that was unused from our allocation last year, for that to be carried forward into the new year, which will give us an opportunity to actually increase our spending above the funding that we would have received from Welsh Government for specific items. There are also discussions underway in terms of proposed establishment changes within HEIW in terms of, because of the increasing resource that HEIW is now managing and commissioning. Colleagues will have noted in the financial plan that we've approved as part of the overall plan for the year. You will have noted that within that document was a 5-year financial plan for HEIW. And you will have noted that at 270 million for this year, in 5 years' time, we're expecting that to be over 370 million. So you'll see that there is a significant increase in HEIW's resources over the years ahead, as there has been in this year compared to last year. And accompanying that is the need to make sure that our establishment and our infrastructure is sufficiently, has the capacity to be able to manage all of the activities that we are now embarked on. So we have there are discussions underway with Welsh Government for additional funding to be provided to support the expansion in our capacity. When we put all of that together, it produces a financial plan for 21-22, which is set out in table 5 on page 6. Colleagues will see from that we are anticipating receiving income that totals close to 275 million, is 274.77. And below that, you can see the analysis of that, how that is to be utilised across the offices of all the executives, and then the 112 million of medical commissioning and the 124 million of healthcare professional commissioning activities, amounting to 275 million in total. So that figure accords with the figure that's in the 5-year plan that you've considered within the annual plan for HEIW for the current year. So the resource plan sets the detail out of how we've arrived at our starting plan for the current year. And then section 4 of this document takes us through how we then break the financial plan down into the delegated budgets that we are allocating to the executive team. And section 4 sets out how we establish the budgets, how we calculate the pay budgets, the non-pay budgets, and the commissioning budgets, and so on. So section 5 then sets out that the detail of our delegated budgets to executives is set out in Appendix 2 in all the various categories for the executive directors. And that all then balances back to the financial plan that we have for the current year. Section 6 sets out the key risks to the plan, and in that, I don't think there's anything in the key risks that we in HEIW have got the capacity to be able to manage through successfully this year. So in conclusion, Chair, I would present the resource plan to the board, which sets out the financial plan and the delegated budgets to be established to executives, and I would ask the board to approve the document. And with that, Chair, if I can hand back to you.
Diolch yn fawr, Eifion. Now then, are there any questions or comments, please, for Eifion? Jill?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just a couple of points of clarification. Pay award, Eifion, just remind me, is it an automatic up from the Welsh Government for all pay awards, so we don't have to hedge our bets and budget accordingly? And I guess a similar question for inflation and where what we would be likely to be funded and what assumptions we've made in terms of that going forward.
Okay, so you are correct, Jill, in terms of pay budgets, the pay cost in terms of, from an inflation point of view, of the award this year will be fully covered by Welsh Government in terms of the allocation to be received. So there's 1% that's already within our numbers, and if it goes higher than that, funding will be provided to support that. In terms of non-pay budgets, we've looked at the inflation that we've incurred in previous years and tried to forecast in terms of the categories of expenditure. There isn't that much non-pay expenditure within our budget, so the risk of non-pay budgets being different from our projections is small. Most of our non-pay spend is on commissioning, and those activities are well controlled within our contracts that we have. So there's little risk to the organisation from inflation running away from us, really.
Thanks, Eifion.
Okay. Any other questions or comments for Eifion? I can't see any, so in that case, I'm asking members to agree the methodology used in establishing the 2021-22 delegated budgets. Can I ask
Yes.
you?
Yes.
Note the financial framework as set out in the annual plan.
Yes.
Yes.
Note the Welsh Government allocation.
Yes.
And I think that we've noted and considered the key risks outlined.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody.
Diolch yn fawr.
Now then, Nicola, can I say thank you to you and the team that have put everybody who's worked on the annual plan. Job well done. Thank you very much. And Eifion, can you thank your team, please, who've worked on making sure that the pound, shillings and pence align with the aspirations of our plan. Yeah, bit of a boo-boo if it didn't, but diolch yn fawr, diolch o galon. Now then, we now want to move on to agenda item 2.2, which is the accountability report. Dafydd.
Diolch yn fawr iawn, Cadeirydd. Felly, papur sydd yn gofyn i'r bwrdd gymeradwyo yr adroddiad atebolrwydd blynyddol AaGIC ydy hon, a wedyn iddo fo gael ei gyflwyno i Llywodraeth Cymru. Mae yna 3 prif elfen i'r adroddiad. Mae gyntaf y datganiad llywodraethu blynyddol, yn ail yr adroddiad ar gydnabyddiaeth a staff, ac yn drydydd yr adroddiad atebolrwydd ac archwilio Senedd Cymru. Gallaf gadarnhau fod yr adroddiad atebolrwydd wedi cael ei ystyried gan y Pwyllgor Archwilio ddoe a bod y Pwyllgor Archwilio yn gefnogol bod y papur yn cael ei gyflwyno heddiw i'r bwrdd. Roedd hyn yn ymodol ar 2 welliant. Well, so just turn to English just to kind of point to the suggested amendments to the annual governance statement. So at the committee yesterday, it was identified that at page 24 of the annual governance statement, that we should insert a reference to the internal audit report on governance, which was focused on HEIW's groups, which received a reasonable assurance. So we're just going to need to add that in. I just agreed with Tina earlier that we also need to amend at page 7 of the annual governance statement, table 1, that Tina in fact attended 6 out of the 8 board meetings rather than 5 as is currently indicated. Therefore, subject to those amendments, we're asking that the board approve the accountability report and for it to be submitted to Welsh Government, please.
Diolch yn fawr, Dafydd. Oes yna cwestiynau Dafydd now? Are there any questions or comments for Dafydd?
None from me.
Can't see any. Oh, Jill, are you putting your hand up? No.
No.
No. Okay. In that case, I'm asking that the board receive, in accordance with the recommendation from the Audit and Assurance Committee, and approve the accountability report for 2021 for signature, taking into account amendments on page 24 and the amendment on page 7. So can I ask for your approval of those of the accountability reports, please?
Agreed.
Yes, agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Agenda item 2.3, performance report. Dafydd.
Diolch Cadeirydd. Felly adroddiad ydy hwn yn ar adroddiad perfformiad. Unwaith eto, dyn ni'n gofyn i'r bwrdd ystyried yr adroddiad a'i chymeradwyo i'w gyflwyno i Llywodraeth Cymru. Cafodd yr adroddiad yma hefyd i ystyried ddoe gan y Pwyllgor Archwilio. Mi oedd y Pwyllgor yn gefnogol, unwaith eto, fod yr adroddiad yn cael ei gymeradwyo gan y bwrdd, yn awgrymu bod yn cael ei gymeradwyo gan y bwrdd ar gyfer ei gyflwyno i Llywodraeth Cymru. Roedd hyn yn ymodol ar 1 gwelliant, roedd yna typo ar tudalen 9 ar y adroddiad, so I'll just turn to English just to identify the amendment. So with regards to page 9, paragraph 7, there's a reference there to HEIW's current performance rate with regards to PADR. It currently refers to a performance rate of 600%, and that obviously should be 61.8%. So just to conclude, we're requesting that the board approve the performance report for submission to Welsh Government tomorrow, please. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments for Dafydd in relation to this report? No. In that case, then, I'm asking the board to consider and approve for submission to the Welsh Government pending the amendment on page 9.
Agreed.
Yes, agreed.
Thank you very much. Agenda item 2.4, Audit and Assurance Committee review of accounts and public disclosure statements. Can I hand this over to you, Jill, as chair of our Audit and Assurance Committee?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just to say that we had an Audit and Assurance Committee yesterday. We received the said documents and gave them due consideration. We looked at the draft accounts previously at an audit committee at the start of May and approved them for consideration for approval to the board today. So the recommendation from the Audit and Assurance Committee is for approval by the board.
Thank you, Jill. Any questions for Jill? No. In that case, I'm asking that the board note the update from the Chair of Audit and Assurance Committee.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Final accounts, agenda item 2.5. Big drum roll here, Eifion.
Thank you, Chair. Diolch yn fawr iawn. If I just quickly take us through statements on the accounts. First of all, I would say that draw colleagues' attention to that our operating costs in 2021 was 234.7 million. This was an increase of 21.7 million on the previous year's spend. The biggest increase was in medical, dental and pharmacy costs, training expenditure. That can be seen in note 3.2. And you will note from that analysis that biggest increase was in GP registrar expenditure, which was an increase of 7.2 million. We included dental training expenditure within our accounts for the first time, with the expenditure costs having been transferred from Welsh Government for us to manage in 2021. So that resulted in a £4.3 million increase in our expenditure. And then training hospital doctors increased by 2.1 million. Those were the three biggest areas of increased costs, making up that £21.7 million increase on the previous years. There isn't anything of note for me to actually draw your attention to on the balance sheet, which is shown on page 4. And in essence, if I draw your attention to pages 22 through to 24 of the accounts, which show that our revenue position was £95,000 underspent for the year. Our capital position was £21,000 underspent for the year. And our creditor payments targets achieved a 95.9% payment of invoices of non-NHS bills within 30 days. And thereby we met all the financial targets that were set for the organisation. The ISA 260 report that was received by from Audit Wales, that was received by the Audit Committee yesterday, on those accounts said that they would intend to issue an unqualified opinion on the accounts. There were no uncorrected misstatements. In fact, there were no corrections because there were no misstatements at all within the accounts. So there's no correction of any misstatements. There was no significant issues to report, and there were no recommendations to be made in the report on the accounts in terms of anything going forward. So in essence, it was a clean audit report on the accounts. There was one emphasis of matter addition to be considered in the report on the opinion due to the arrangement of the clinicians' pension tax liabilities matter, which is an All Wales issue, which is an ongoing matter whereby we will actually have a contingent liability noted within the accounts. And therefore, Chairman, that's all I intended to say to the board. I'm available to answer any questions that any colleagues would have.
So that was an okay report from Wales Audit Office then?
Yeah, it doesn't get better than that, Chair.
Oh, how dull. Thank God. Right. Are there any questions or comments to make, please, for Eifion? So, Jill?
Yes, if I may, Chair, we did say a few words at the Audit Committee yesterday, but I think it's worth reiterating those at the board in terms of what you might term an adequate performance. I think we said very well done to the team. Thanks to the auditors as well for a very smooth process. But I have to say, I've never, ever, as an auditor, issued a report with no errors at all. And so the team need to be very, very highly commended for the efforts they've made, particularly under the difficult circumstances that everybody's still working under. So I just want to record the thanks from the Audit Committee to the team, and indeed to external audit who aren't here for their efforts as well, because it is a partnership.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I don't think any other comments could top that, really, Eifion. It's a good place to be.
Yeah.
So thank you to you and your leadership and to your team.
Diolch mawr. Diolch.
So we've noted these reports. In particular, we've noted the ISA 260 and letter of representation, and we've noted the final accounts. So I take it now then, you're going to ask us to formally approve the accounts and public disclosures. Is that right, Eifion?
Yes, that is the case, Chair.
Okay, so the board is asked to approve the accounts and public disclosure statements for 2021.
Agreed.
Approved.
Thank you. And can I have the approval, please, for the use of electronic signatures for the signing of the accounts, public disclosure statements, and the elements of the accountability report prior to the submission to Welsh Government on June the 11th?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you very much. I do want to say something at this point. This has been about the process, but I want to say thank you to Alex and your team for what this money and this planning has achieved. I think that's, for me, that's the big thing about this. It's been done well. We've heard that there's been no recommendations from external audit, and we've heard that, you know, the books are in good fettle. But actually, it's what this investment has achieved, this public money investment, not just into the NHS, but what this money spent in Wales means to the communities across Wales. So, you know, I'm sure I'm speaking on behalf of all the independent members. Thank you very much. It's been very difficult circumstances, very strange circumstances, but all those millions of component parts that have gone on the last year, led by the your exec team, Alex, really thank you and well done. And I commend these reports into Welsh Government, and particularly the annual plan going forward. So we've got two other bits of business. One is the in-committee decisions. Dafydd?
So these are the in-committee decisions taken at the last meeting of the board, and the paper is just for noting.
Okay, so can I ask the board to note them, please?
Noted.
Right, now, under any other urgent business, I'm duty bound to bring any chair's action to the next board meeting. So this is slightly out of kilter. Last week, I took a chair's action on the 4th of June to authorise the Chief Exec to approve the shared service monthly single lead employer invoice for up to £4 million for each of June, July, August and September. These are SLE employer invoices that cover GP trainees, dental foundation trainees and pre-registration pharmacists. That's a monthly SLE on that pharmacist one. So that was the additionality that took this way over the delegated budget. And I've asked David to explore through Ivion a recommendation to bring to the board to review the delegated chief exec's budget, because this is likely to become an ongoing thing because the business is grown. We've been successful. So, and we're changing there are changes in the way that the employment happens. So I'm happy to take any questions, but in accordance with the standing orders, I took advice from 2 independent members, and I'm asking the board to ratify the chair's action that was taken.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Happy with that? Okay.
Agreed.
I'm very grateful. So all I've got to say now is that the dates of the next meeting, the board development session on the 17th of June, and the next board will be on the 29th of July. Now, Angela, I made a mistake in the last full board.
Right, right,
I
Chair.
suggested it would be your last, that one would be your last board meeting. Is this definitely your last board meeting?
Well,
I believe so.
session.
Hmm?
Is the board development session next week?
You're coming to the board development session?
Yes, I've not gone quite yet.
All right, so I don't need to say any more now. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, so thank you, everybody. Thank you for the papers. Have you got any questions, Catherine England?
No, thank you, Chair.
No, you're all right. Okay, thank you, everybody. Diolch yn fawr. Hwyl nawr.
Hwyl.
Bye.